So the way that I want to start this conversation, it's going to be in 3 different parts, I'm thinking. We'll start with the future of Pride, what you think that it should be. Then we'll talk about current Pride, and then we'll talk about the history, what we think has happened in Pride, what we've thought about what's happened in Pride. And when I say Pride, I talk about it in 2 ways. One is the month of June, Pride, the events that people have, and then the personal connection that you have with it. So feel free to talk to whichever aspect you feel is good to talk to right now. So then we'll start with the future of Pride. Does anybody immediately have something that they want to say about it?
I feel like I would like in the future for people to be more educated on it, like in school and stuff, for it to be more talked about and normalized for kids to be like taught by their parents and stuff of what it is, because a lot of kids just aren't educated on it and don't understand it enough.
Is there any certain experience that you had that you would want to share?
No.
Or any specific thing that you think, oh, it would have been really nice if I knew this when I was younger? Or now?
I wish that I would have been taught about it in school, because when I was younger in class and stuff, I went to a private school, and it was just kind of normal for me to feel attraction to men and stuff, so I just brushed it off, and everyone at my school didn't care either. I guess they didn't have any opinion on it, so they just didn't care either. So that was nice, but I just wish that I knew more about what was going on or something.
So when it comes to education on the LGBTQI plus community, moving forward, is there anything that y'all think should be done?
I'd like to see actual in sexual education. I would like to see some of that catered to queer people, because growing up, I went to a Christian school, so I didn't have any sex ed at all. But specifically for queer people, it's very different. We have different experiences, we have different safety measures we have to take. A lot of doctors don't even know what PrEP is. So
here in Louisville, doctors don't know what PrEP is?
Everywhere. Yeah. So I think that if we had not just in school education, but society as a whole needs to have the opportunities to learn, and I feel like we get some of that during Pride Month because we see Pride Months everywhere. But as a whole, there's still a lot of things that people just don't understand, and that leads to either fear from them or confusion for us, because we don't have a way to navigate our queerness effectively.
For somebody who's watching this and not part of the community, what's a first step that they can take to help get there?
I guess so. If they're LGBTQ, or if they're not LGBTQ.
If they're not, yeah.
If they're not, I think that you can start off with some of the like Trevor Project. If you're local, Louisville AIDS Walk. Mm-hmm. Can you think of any?
For the youth,
resources
for the youth, I would say
individuals
for
to learn about our lives and stuff.
It's kind of harder. It takes a lot of effort to find some of the queer spaces, because it is so underground still for us here. We're not very we have this on Main Street, we have this here. We have 1 or 2 small areas where a lot of us congregate, but it doesn't count as a queer space. We just make it into one. So sometimes it gets confusing for those who are not directly part of the community. So I think that one thing that I would like for us to see would be for us to make it more normalized for us to be visible. I think we are still trying to see if we're gonna be okay with that, and I think that we need to just live and be out in the open. We don't have to hide who we are. We don't have to come out anymore. I think that's what I want to see in the future, and that's what I think needs to happen for us to have a more inclusive community for those who are not directly part of the LGBTQ community.
Is that something most people agree with? That there needs to be more representation, just people living?
Yeah, So my first Pride was when I was like 19 or 20, and I'm 31 now. And my experience, I mean, it was great. You know, I saw people just kind of being themselves. I'm like, this is where I can be to be myself, but also it was like a culture shock for me. I wasn't aware of it. You know, I knew that I liked women, so I'm like, let me go check this out. But when I got there and I saw, you know, 2 men kissing or 2 women kissing, I'm just like, no, no, no. You know, we need to stay in a closet with that. So I was kind of homophobic towards those people and myself. And I think it's because, you know, I didn't have that, my family didn't have that awareness, you know what I mean? And I was raised in a church. So I was also raised to hate myself and to believe that I was disgusting, you know, and to me it feels like growing up black, you know, there are laws and movies and music that make you believe that, oh, your skin color is lower class. And if you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, you're lower class. And so that's why I had that reaction when I went to Pride. And so, you know, I think I think Pride is doing really well with the awareness now. You know, I have friends who have kids, and I hear them having these conversations about getting married when they get older. And my friend is like, oh, do you want to marry a man or a woman? And they're like, you know, I don't know yet. I'm like, that's great. You know, because yeah, I didn't have that conversation when I was young. So I just love the awareness, and I hope that it is more prioritized, definitely.
What are you thinking, Greg?
Well, thinking about the future of Pride, you know, I think I come from a different perspective because I've been engaged in Pride for a lot of years. My first Pride parade I attended was 1985 in New York City, and I'm looking around thinking probably y'all weren't even alive in 1985. So I've seen a lot of changes in progress with the Pride movement and the celebration of Pride. One of the biggest things I've noticed more recently, and perhaps you all have noticed it too, in Pride events is the presence of religious organizations being there and sponsoring visibility and support for the LGBT community. I think that's great. In my church that I belonged to for the last 33 years, this was the first year we recognized Pride Month in my church. So I think the future of Pride is going to need to continue to engage and bring in and draw in religious communities, because I really think we need that support to keep things moving.
Is coming from my own perspective, because I'm a gay man, I'm not sure if I mentioned that yet. I feel like growing up and learning about the movement and like everything that was done in Pride, things were, since the 80s, have like skyrocketed into so much being accepted and so much being talked about. And then I feel like this need to, you know, keep pushing. Like I came in as it's starting to near off. Like it seems like people are kind of accepting where we're at now. Does anybody else feel that way?
Go ahead.
Kind of. I feel like so I think of like what Pride was in 2012 whenever I like was old enough to go and not, you know, be like held down by my family or whatever. And today it is very different. We have corporations sponsoring Pride. We've got t-shirts in Target. We've got, you know, we're more visible than ever, but I still feel like a lot of the same issues that we had then, we still have today. So I think having religious organizations is a big positive, because it helps normalize it for people who might have been taught differently. They get to see, you know, Catholic churches and Christian churches and all the churches come out and be supportive of something that they've been taught is wrong. So I think that's beautiful. Yeah.
There has been a lot of criticism, though, that Pride has gotten too commercial within the LGBT community. A lot of folks have stepped up and said, you know, we think we're being taken advantage of and exploited. So I never really got that feeling. I'm not on that bandwagon that a lot of people have jumped on. I think it's great when corporations come in and they put their money behind things that they believe in. And pride is something that most corporations, big corporations especially, and those in our community have really gotten behind. If you look at the biggest employers, they're fully behind pride. They're sponsoring groups to march. Often they're sponsoring booths that are at the festivals and so on. So I don't think it's selling out. I think it's great to have that support.
What does everybody else think of that? Because I think it's called pink washing is the term used for that. What does everybody think of that?
I think that corporations sponsoring Pride, I think all of that is great. I truly believe that a lot of them really do care and really want to push to where we don't have to come out. But I also think there are some who are jumping on the bandwagon because it's the popular thing to do, and it's the thing that is accepted now. So they join in, that way they don't look like the bad guy. And so I think that if it is coming from a place of genuineness or a place of honesty, I would say yes, I'm down for it and like perfect. But if it's coming from, can I profit? Can I make a profit off this? I don't think we need you yet. Right now, I don't think we need you.
I don't think you, I like that we don't need them yet. So if I can expand on that, I think that corporations at Pride, like there are some, for Humana, for example, that typically do walk the walk and, they put the money in the community. And then there are other companies who just sell t-shirts and buttons, and they're not putting that money back into the communities. And it's especially heinous whenever a corporation will have, like, on their Twitter profile picture, like their logo in rainbow, and then turn around and have discriminatory hiring practices where they might not hire someone who has their pronouns in their resume, or not hire someone who's trans or too gay or too black. That's my issue with corporations at Pride. And it's hard to know when they're genuine and when they're not. So we have to be ever vigilant, which is another thing that we have to do as like a community, is to be aware of like who's actually an ally and who's just doing it so that they look progressive. So,
to make a connection to you, Abel, I feel like companies in your world is almost kind of like the schools too that we go to, is like the businesses we work for. I know some schools will put up like signs that say safe space, or like some districts may have a gay pride flag or like make a post about it. What's your experience been like?
So I feel like if they like keep on doing that and not just keep it up for Pride Month, because sometimes they'll just like put something up just for the month and then take it down and like kind of just like forget about it until next year. I feel like it would be better if they just like kept everything like all around, because that would actually show that they support and not just like taking stuff down after.
And it sounds like we're talking about the present a lot now, so we'll kind of shift to that. As somebody like myself, I have only been here a few months, and when I came here, I had no idea if there was a community, what it was like. It was hard to find out information. So if somebody's seeing this, trying to figure out what's the community like here, what are the issues, what are the solutions, what do I need to know about whether or not this is a safe space or I should move there, what do y'all wish they knew? Or what do y'all want them to know?
I'm actually listening in on you guys' answers because I moved here from Cleveland, and see in Cleveland we had an LGBT center, so I went there a lot for my safe space. But here in Louisville, I can't find that at all. And I have a lot of friends too that are kind of looking for that space. So I'm kind of wondering, like, I know that there's like donations going on for a future center, but like, is there anything else?
There's the Louisville Youth Group here in town, and that works, of course, with the youth mostly. But for folks our age, there's bars. Like we have a couple of bars here in town. We used to have more. So I guess if you're young, LYG would be a great one. That's Louisville Youth Group. And if you're older, it's a little bit more, I guess, difficult to kind of acclimate to the community.
Is there any place that doesn't have alcohol? Because I know like some people, whether they're
That is
sober or
Yeah, that is a good topic to talk on. Is that a lot of our adult spaces that are queer are often, I mean, as far as I'm aware, they're all boozy.
Yeah.
So
and are they like queer and trans, or are they just gay? Because the impression that I've gotten
Yeah.
going to some of these bars is that they're gay bars.
That's what I've experienced.
Yeah.
A lot of gay bars, yeah.
That is the case.
That is the case.
I mean, I like to think that they're all very welcoming. You know, I've been to I've kind of like lived the life of like several identities as I like try to like figure it out. So I've mostly felt welcome everywhere I go. There's Play Louisville, where Estelle performs occasionally, and that's a welcoming space to trans, non-binary folks. I see young people today who are, you know, you can look at them and see that they are expressing themselves and like living their true, authentic life, and they don't look like they fit the male-female binary, and they don't seem uncomfortable. So, and there's what's that little bar on Bardstown Road where they do the Dragula shows? I think Daniel Cole's done them. Big Bar.
Thank you.
Fierce,
I
yeah.
was like, oh yeah, there's Big Bar and Chill Bar over there.
Yeah, and I've been to Chill Bar a handful of times, and it's still boozy, but it's a very, I mean, it's chill. It's very laid back. So.
Those are some good places, I guess. Does that answer your question?
I'd like to offer something else other than LYG or the bars. I think there's an opportunity for people to get involved with the Fairness Campaign as a volunteer. It's a good way to network, and you know, if you're volunteering, you can do good work. You know, their mission, of course, is to advance fairness across the whole Commonwealth in employment, public accommodations, and employment, and they need all the help they can get. But it's also a good way to network. So I've gotten involved with Fairness Campaign, doing volunteer work and lobbying legislators. It's a good way to connect to people. So it's something else you can do, and it's kind of productive, and you feel like you're getting something done. And you know, there's no alcohol involved, and it's a good way to meet people too. So.
Ware, Kentucky as well. They're relatively new, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not like a very old organization, but they put on a Pride Festival because we didn't have Kentuckiana Pride this June because of COVID, and they did like a little festival, like a little street fair kind of thing. It was really cute. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a Louisville Pride, a Kentuckiana Pride, and
There's a Kentuckiana Pride, that's the big one, and then there's
Okay.
Louisville Pride, which is on Bardstown Road, and then this year we've seen some like pop-up one-day festivals that are just like small celebrations, and this was the first year that they happened.
Yeah.
There's one Friday, isn't there? I think.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like,
So we've got opportunities. So if this airs before then, you know, you can always look at Queer Kentucky. They'll share stuff, and they've got resources. And Fairness Campaign's another really good one, especially if you want to do good work. Like Fairness Campaign, they're at Kentuckiana Pride. They're at Louisville Pride. They have a booth. You can get condoms. You can get stickers and information, most importantly, from them. So.
Something else that's fun to do with Fairness is they always have a booth at the Kentucky State Fair, and they need volunteers to staff it. So you can go and staff and, you know, just greet people and get them to sign petitions and pass out cards and stickers and that kind of stuff. I've done that a couple of times. It's a lot of fun.
What's it like? What are the conversations like that you have with people?
Well, mostly it's all friendly, you know, because the people that are sneering at you and walking by, they don't stop to engage typically. So the ones that do, you know, are there because they want to support you. So it's, you know, my experience has been very favorable.
Is there a lot of that here in Louisville? People sneering and not wanting to talk about the community or to the community?
Not where I go. I keep myself sequestered.
it depends on where you are. For the most part, we have pretty decent living areas, so we don't have it all the time. But there are still times where you get the looks, or you get the gasps, or you get the people walking their children away. You get those sometimes, but I can't personally say that I get that more than I get everybody running up to me. Because if I'm out in drag, I kind of have that oh my God, do you see that? The spectacle. So usually even the children will run up and be like, hi, which is cool now, because I think that when I was a kid, I would not have run up to the big giant lady with huge hair.
Why is that?
I would have been petrified. First off, I'm a pretty timid person in my day-to-day life. I don't seem like it if you see me perform, but from day to day, I'm usually in the background, kind of in the corner, and I'll watch before I ever actually be involved. So I'm one of those, it depends on how you see me day.
What made you first get into drag?
So I actually was a dancer, and I actually was just a performer in general. I was in high school, I did dance and musical theater and vocal music. And then I graduated high school and I didn't have an outlet for it anymore. So I went to a drag show once and I was like, they're dancing and like they're getting money for it. And somebody was like, yeah, you dance, don't you? And I was like, yeah. They're like, so you can do this. You just gotta put on the gig. And that kind of put my toe in the drag water, and then I fell face first. So like,
Thank God for that.
Does everybody remember the first time they saw a drag queen?
Yes.
That'd be a cool thing to talk about.
Yeah,
Remember first.
the connection back in the
Yes.
day. I went for, I just went for on a Thursday night, and it was like the amateur nights, and I saw like Vivica Hart,
yes.
Tova Yurovich, I think Kashmir, St. James was there,
Oh.
Kashmir, and Terry Vanessa Coleman was the MC.
Yes.
And I took one look at that statuesque beauty, and I was obsessed. And then next thing you know, I mean, I was timid going, and I was terrified. There were going to be gay people there. I was newly gay and very frightened and unpacking a lot of like my Christian guilt. And then once I saw that, I was like, when are we to go next? And then like you, face first, and then I started to get the itch. Like, what if I did it? And yeah, seeing a drag queen for the first time, and my first gay bar experience, it was such a big, like, huge event. It was actually a small event compared to what we're used to, but
Yeah.
big to me, and it just like blew me away. And honestly, I think it gave me confidence to like, I saw queer people existing in their own space, and I was like, this is home. So yeah, no, I love drag. Oh my God, we could talk about it all day.
That's beautiful. Your first time?
Actually, so my first time is also the connection.
Oh, wow.
But I think the first drag queen that I saw, because she was outside, was Cezanne. And that is a woman that you could not take your eyes off of. She was just standing there, minding her business. And I had walked up and I was like, hi. And she was like, why are you so scared, baby? And I was like, I don't know. She said, are you coming for the show? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay, well, you'll see me there. And I was like, and so like, she's just, it was one of those times where I was so starstruck that I didn't know that I was gonna be able to do that to people someday. It was just one of those like, she talked to me, she looked at me, and when I went in, I had a great time, and I left like, that's my life. I'm doing this now. This is where I'm coming forever. And that's kind of how I got into the scene.
Well, Erica, do you remember your first time seeing a drag queen?
I do, and I was shocked, like a really good shocked. The show, my first show, it was amazing, you know, and I'm like, this is the one thing that is actually like the gay movies that I've watched growing up. This is the one thing that's like the movies. It was magical, you know, and I was able to talk to her after the show, and this was in Cleveland, Ohio, and I loved her confidence, you know, I mean, with every word that she said and her movements, and I'm like, that's what I need, You know, I want to grow up and be like her, you know. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I think that club kind of shut down and there was no other place that did drag shows. So I was so depressed. And when I moved to Louisville and I started going to the Connections before that closed down, and then Play opened up, I'm like, thank God, you know, because I love drag shows. Yeah.
Oh, Connection closed down? I didn't put that together.
Yeah.
Oh, do we know why?
It was time.
Okay.
It was a real estate transaction. The
okay.
property was sold, it's being redeveloped.
And it was a beautiful building. They had this ginormous stage,
Yeah.
and they hosted my favorite pageant of all time,
EOI.
EOI. And they had another stage that they did Rocky Horror Picture Show, and that was so fierce.
Yes.
But yeah, and there's so much drag in the city now. Like you were talking about how it was sad whenever you lost that outlet to drag. Drag is everywhere in the city. We've got brunches.
Yeah.
There was a drag at a pizza place. There was I mean, there's just, it's everywhere you go. You know, you can see like drag queens DJing. You can see drag queens hosting brunches and shows and movie nights, all kinds of stuff. Like, we're everywhere.
That's so cool to see.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, do you remember your first time seeing one?
Yeah, this is where we get the historical perspective, I think. There were, in the 1970s, there were two bars here in downtown Louisville that people used to go to. There was the Badlands and the Downtowner. And the Downtowner used to have drag shows. And it must have been, I was trying to do the math while we were talking, but you know, I'm really old, so I can't remember. I think it was probably 1977 or 1978 in the Downtowner. You know, I went in and I would say that in those days, drag was not kind of the spectacle that it is now. I don't think the performers were as talented. They weren't, you know, costumed and made up as well as the drag that we see today. So it was, you know, a little more kind of like kids playing around in their basement, you know, with mom's clothes or something. But I mean, there were some really good performers, but it was a whole different level. So I think drag in general has just you know, been escalated as kind of an art form over the years. But, you know, when I first saw it, I was not very impressed.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about that from your perspective too? Like you mentioned that drag was looked very different, and I have this conversation all the time in a post drag race world. Do you feel like because there's been more acceptance and therefore more exposure, that's why drag has had such a huge evolution from the 60s and 70s to today?
Obviously, it's had a lot more exposure. I mean, people, and it's not just the LGBTQ community that participates in drag. I know all kinds of folks that do it. You know, Straight Allies, you know, they have a big extravaganza at U of L every year, that their pink drag show that they do that draws the whole community, the university community. So I think it's been widely accepted just because I think the performances have gotten better and it's been accepted and kind of normalized it as an entertainment form.
Yeah. It's definitely taken more seriously today than ever before, so that's fierce.
What about you, Abel?
So I remember we went to, me, my friend, and my sister, and I think I was with my dad. We went to go see like a play or something. I forgot what we were like there for, but I think we just went to go see a play or something. And then as we were leaving, there were like two drag queens and people were going and like taking pictures with them and stuff. And it got really crowded. I'm not sure who they were though. And we were kind of like outside the building when we realized, and it got really crowded in there, so we had to leave. But it was a cool experience because I think it was all our first time seeing like a drag queen in person. It was, I don't know, I think it made all of us, we got excited. We wanted to go in and take pictures with them and stuff, but it was too crowded and we had to like leave. But yeah, it was fun.
Very cool. And I think to go off of your discussion earlier, it's just the internet in general, in addition to like RuPaul's Drag Race impacting drag, the internet, being able to see other people like you. I don't think I would have come out if I wasn't able to see other people who were gay on the internet. How have y'all been impacted by that access to information and community?
I mean, I see drag, and I'm sure you do too, on like Instagram and Facebook. I often think to myself, like, where would I be today if the acceptance that we have today was available to me from the jump? And I think that, not to overuse the word fierce, that would be fierce. Like, I would be a totally different person. I would have so much more self-confidence, and it's a generational thing. So for you, Abel, and not to make assumptions, but you probably feel more confident about being yourself than I did at your age.
Yeah.
So I like to
Definitely.
think that in 20 more years, that the next Abel will not even have to worry about the things that we have to worry about, won't have to seek out and claw their way to find queer spaces and queer people, and the internet, of course, I'm assuming it's going to be around for another 20 years. It's available to us already at our fingertips, but like, be present in everywhere you look. We'll just see queerness exist normally, which is so weird to me to think about, but I like to imagine that it's possible.
You know, Greg, back when you were at the first Pride in '85, were you thinking 20 years from now everything is going to be better than it was today and fixed in a way, or what were you thinking?
I wasn't that hopeful, no. I mean, it was optimistic. It was New York in 1985. In Kentucky, I don't think we started celebrating Pride here till, what was it, 99 or something was the first, or maybe 2000 was the first Pride parade and festival. So, it took a long time for Pride to make its way to kind of the inner part of the country, including Louisville. But in '85, I didn't have any expectations that things were going to happen very rapidly here or anywhere else. I thought New York was kind of different and isolated in those days. But I'm quite surprised that Pride the movement has gone as far as it has, as quickly as it has. I mean, I've seen things in my life that I never could have imagined, 20 years ago or 40 years ago. I mean, I came out in 1976, so I've been out for a long time, and by comparison, I mean, there was no internet. There was no book. There were no books in the library or other resources even that you could tap into that would really assist you in going through that process of coming out. It was a very painful thing to do, and you had to do it very deliberately because it was such a different world. But no, I didn't have a lot of hope in those days. I think a lot of people. I understand the desperation of young people today, and 10 years ago and 20 years ago, because that desperation has been with our community forever. And I think perhaps it will probably be with us for a while in the future. And I don't know how we get past that. But I do think things like the internet and public acceptance are certainly making it better and easier for folks these days.
And you mentioned coming out in '75 being newly gay going into the '80s when there was a whole nother pandemic
Right.
faced by the queer community. What was that like here in Louisville?
It was painful. Fortunately for me, I met my husband in 1983, and we've been together ever since, so almost 40 years. So so we weren't directly exposed ourselves personally to the AIDS epidemic, but we knew lots of people, lots of our friends who died and who were impacted by AIDS, and it was heart-wrenching. Thank God you didn't have to go through that, because it was terrible. And for those of us who lived through it, you always have a sense of guilt about, why did I survive when so many of my friends were taken? So it was a difficult thing to go through, but it does kind of steal you. It's kind of like what we've all been through with the pandemic over the last year or so. It's like, it's so horrible, and you don't know if you're going to live or make it through it, but you do. And then you feel like you've got new life and you've got new purpose, because it's like you feel like God spared you from one thing so that you could accomplish something else. And so that's the way I felt a lot about the AIDS epidemic. And it's the way I feel now about the pandemic. The fact that we're all here, God's given us a new chance every single day to go out and do something with our lives. And, here we are all doing something, so good for us, right?
Is there anything you wish younger generations knew about the AIDS crisis that you've recognized not many people do?
It's not, it's not like what you saw in the movies and on TV. I mean, I think it's like a lot of things. It gets kind of romanticized and sanitized. It was just ugly to watch people suffer and die the way they did. And the fact that there was there was so little compassion, it seemed like, for people who got AIDS. It was almost the feeling that they got it because they deserved it, and it was God's way of punishing them. And that was what we heard a lot especially from conservative folks. So it's really not, I mean, there are some similarities to what you see with the representations in the media, but it was really a lot worse than that.
I can't imagine having your friends like passing around you constantly, and every day you hear a new number. And well, actually, I guess I can, because it happens with trans women today.
Yeah.
And
right.
you think, like, as a queer person, you're devastated by the loss of life, and then you hear people almost excuse it away, like it was going to happen eventually, and it's really, really.
I try not to go there very much, so it's painful to have to relive it. You know, it's like if you talk to people who've had loved ones die in the pandemic, you know how painful it was for them, and you know, there's a lot like that.
And I'm glad you brought up the crisis for trans people right now, because it is a crisis. Is there anything that, while we have the platform, anybody wants to say about the issue?
Stop killing trans women. Protect trans women of color. Like, they are everyday people, and the closest people to me are trans, some variety of trans, and I don't know. I'm still feeling like very, but yeah, like just take the time to get to know people. Trans people they've lived through some of the hardest self-realization, and they've had to literally build the confidence just to take the first step to become who they are, and then the bravery to share that with the world. Just take the time to know them. They have nuggets of wisdom that we could all benefit from, and they just want to live their lives and be unbothered. And unfortunately, that's not the reality. So, do you have anything?
You said it all, girl. You said it all. It's true. Just thinking about it in general makes you either really mad or really sad. So, like, it's one of those, like, why do you think you're better? And so I would like to say this: we're all humans. We are all humans. So there's no reason for you to think that somebody is less because they don't present like you do, or they don't feel like you do. We are not the same, but we are together. So, like, keep it that way. I'm so tired of seeing a new number and seeing a new face.
Another hashtag, and then say her name.
And so, like, every time I see it or hear it or think about it, I'm like, how do we fix it? How do we protect everyone? And it just gets when I realize that I can't, it makes me want to just like scream. So usually I want to say, like, leave my sisters alone. Leave them alone. They deserve happiness just as much as you do.
And I've seen a lot of national coverage about that issue. I haven't seen a lot about what's happening here in Louisville. Is it a serious issue here? Is it happening a lot?
On a smaller, I would say,
Okay.
on a smaller
Yeah.
scale.
The scale here isn't really.
We're a progressive city.
Yeah,
For the most part.
we have a pretty progressive city, but also ours isn't really, they're turning up dead or something like that. It's more,
Microaggression.
yeah, it's more they're getting fired from a job. They're getting sexually harassed at a job.
Getting refused to take pole dancing classes at a local establishment.
Did that happen?
Yes.
Yes, girl. It sure did. You would think that like an art form that's so specifically like you have to feel empowered to do it, and it's a sexualized art form and an exercise that's beneficial to the body. So you'd think that somebody running that would be very open-minded and inclusive, but that is not always the case.
No,
So-
it is not.
Yeah.
And for a lot of these issues changing, I know some people say the next generation will make the difference. But I know a lot of times, like when I was a kid, I didn't have older people to talk to and ask questions. Abel, are there any questions that you have for the people we're sitting with? Anything that you've been curious about?
I don't think I have any questions because I have some people to talk to, like Max, but I mean, yeah, it does help a lot to have someone to talk to about issues and stuff.
Any issues that impact you that we haven't talked too much about so far?
A lot of people just like a lot of the issues at school and stuff are just because people like aren't really like educated on it and they don't really understand it, so they just assume that it's bad because that's what a lot of people think or something. So I feel like, yeah.
What is it like to be in school now?
Most people just don't like, I don't know, no one really understands. Like they'll ask a lot of weird questions and stuff. It's weird being in school because like I'm really open about myself, so I don't really care what people like say, but it's just kind of weird like what people will ask and stuff sometimes.
Do you get like a lot of invasive questions
Yeah.
about things that are nobody's business? Same. So, is there anything that we can do as like your elders of like multiple generations here, like that we can do to help make things easier for you now or in the future?
I feel like just educating like children when they're young and having like sources for them to like go to and stuff would help a lot. If they just didn't like, I don't know, if they had someone to like teach them more about stuff, because I feel like that's just an issue, is they don't get taught about it and they just don't understand. So
When I was in high school, as soon as I came out, I feel like everybody who was in the closet started asking me questions and saying like, I'm in the closet, don't tell anybody, but this is everything I'm dealing with. Do you get that a lot?
no one has ever done that to me.
Oh, well, that's good, I guess. Does anybody else have questions for each other? Or curiosities?
I have one, if I may. I wanted to ask both of you about we've seen a lot in the last year, especially with with what happened to Brianna.
Right.
What is it like now? Because you both have to navigate the intersection of queerness and of blackness. Can you explain it to me like I'm 4? And I think that will help anybody who's watching to understand the unique struggles that you all face, if you want to share.
I mean, I think it's kind of what I said before, being a black woman and queer, so it's like 3 strikes against me. But I've had to do so much healing work because I have been through a lot. And a lot of people, I feel like, especially with racism here, a lot of people like to brush it off, and it's like, oh, it's a lot better, than it was, but it's still a problem. And like I said before, there are things telling us indirectly, like, hey, you don't belong, like with the music and the laws and the movies and whatnot. Those things are still there. When I moved here and I moved into St. Matthews, I see a lot of white people, and this is in the back of my mind, like, I don't belong here, and I'm gay, So it's tough to navigate, but like I said, I've done a lot of healing work, and I try to make myself understand that I'm not the problem. I do truly believe whenever someone looks at someone else and they see anger, they're seeing themselves. So I try to remember that, but it is tough, and I do hope for a day that people decide to do some inner work and love themselves so that they can truly start to love and understand everyone else. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think that we as people of color in the queer community, we as soon, and it's not even when you come out, it's as soon as you are suspected to be different, it's like everything becomes stacked against you. Because as growing up as a flamboyant black boy, I was always looked at as soft, or I was looked at as less than like my brothers or my uncles and my cousins, because I wasn't as strong, I wasn't as tough. And then growing up and looking at the world around me, I saw that, well, black people are aggressive, and black people are the problem, and black people are doing the crimes, and they bring it on themselves. They're disobedient, and I'm like, well, wait, so I'm too weak to be part of my family, but I'm too aggressive to be part of society. And so then you add actually confirming and like embracing your queerness, and then it becomes, well, now I'm too weak to be part of my family, and I'm too disobedient to be part of society, and now I'm also in a community where I don't have a place, because it seems like even in a community that is supposed to be about inclusivity, being of color takes you out. It puts you as a negative. It's very hard to be a black queer person, because if you ever go into a bar and you see the jocks over there, but you see white boys, and you see the bears over there, but you see white boys. Oh, the drag queens are over there, and you see white boys. And like, you're looking around and all you see is white and white and white. And you're like, but where do I sit? Where do I stand? And then if you're like me, who kind of doesn't really fit in with, I don't have a black card. Like, I'm very in between societies. Like, I'm in groups. I'm too white to be black and too black to be white. So then I become extremely isolated because there's no one like me. And then adding not being binary, and then you got another thing stacked. So it seems like as soon as you become something other than just black, it gets harder every step you take. And so, granted, it has gotten better, and I hate that phrase, it gets better, because it gets better doesn't help now. But it has gotten better for me, but it's gotten better for me because I've put in the work. I've made sure that I have enough self-esteem to where I don't need somebody else's approval.
Yes, yeah.
And I have enough confidence in myself and in my existence that I can go into a place and say, I belong here because I am here. And I think a lot of queer black people have to have that mentality and have to kind of grasp that ability first before they even truly become part of the community. And so, like, that's just kind of just how I feel being black and queer, hitting that cross section. I think that's how it always, how it works.
Yeah, you kind of always feel like you're right in the middle and you don't really fit into anything. And like you said, you have to kind of turn inward because all your life you've been told that you don't belong, you know, and I mean, this is something that I feel like I just healed from, and feeling that I don't belong anywhere. But I'm like, you know what, I do. And my existence is proof of that. No matter where I go, I belong.
Exactly.
You know, and I think it is so important, I mean, for that, like when we have pride, for that representation to be there, for those booths to be there for mental and emotional health, I think that needs to be prioritized over the drinking and the partying. That needs to be prioritized because being Black, being gay, it comes with that trauma and that pain. And it's important to prioritize that in Pride. You know, okay, we have the month of June to feel happy and you know, feel like we belong, but what about the other months, you know? So, yeah, I think it's important, just like you said, to help people understand that they belong and that, hey, you know, I feel great in my skin every month of the year. So, yeah.
I think that's a really powerful note to end on, unless anybody else had anything that they wanted to add, anything that they wish we had addressed.
Thank you guys for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, by the way, for your perspective.
Yes,
it's
thank
very
you.
valuable.
Thanks for showing up.
Um,
Yeah, it's nice to
I don't have anything.
Max, did you have any questions? Alyssa? No? Okay then, I think we're done. Thank you guys very much for coming. I loved this
Yeah,
conversation. I
yeah,
feel
that
like I
was
learned a
so
lot.
fun.